It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news bulletin, and we will be starting straight away with the main headlines. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received a phone call from the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. Presidential spokesman Mohammed al-Shinawi said that the two sides expressed their keenness on boosting the strategic bilateral ties into wider horizons in different fields, serving the interests of both friendly nations. The spokesman said that President al-Sisi asserted the Egyptian full commitment to preserving the unique and sacred status of St. Catherine Monastery per a recent judiciary sentence issued in this regard. He reiterated that the court ruling falls in Egyptian keen interest in protecting the sanctity of the religious worship places, affirming the unique spiritual and the hereditary value of the UNESCO World Heritage Landmark, the Holy Monastery of St. Catherine. Egypt condemned an Israeli occupation approval to establish 22 new settlements in the occupied West Bank. The Foreign Ministry said that the occupation's decision is a provocation and a new violation to the international law and to the Palestinian rights rejected by the international community. It asserted that the establishment of an independent Palestinian state is a right of the Palestinian people and an irreversible, legitimate international demand. The Foreign Ministry also stressed that the Israeli settlements have no legal basis and are violations of the international law and the Geneva Accords. In addition, it said the settlement policy is a major obstacle to the two-state solution as well as to any just, lasting, and the comprehensive peace. Hamas official Bassem Naim said that the Palestinian resistance group has received an Israeli response to the U.S. proposal for the Gaza ceasefire deal and is reviewing it. The official said that the new version of the proposal fails to meet any of the Palestinian just and legitimate demands, notably the demand for halting the war. Nonetheless, he said the movement's leadership is studying the response to the proposal with the full national responsibility. Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said that it was time to use full force in Gaza after the Palestinian group Hamas said a new truce proposal failed to meet their demands. The White House said that the President Donald Trump and the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff had submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel had backed. In Gaza, the Civil Defense Agency said that at least 22 people had been killed in the Israeli attacks on Friday. The dead included 7 who were killed in a strike targeting a family home in Jabalia in the north. As of Thursday, the health ministry in Gaza said at least 3,009. French President Emmanuel Macron said on Friday that the European countries should harden the collective position against Israel if it does not respond appropriately to the humanitarian situation in Gaza, with the international pressure mounting on Israel over the deepening hunger crisis in Gaza. Macron said that action was needed in the next few hours and days. He also asserted the recognition of a Palestinian state with conditions was not only a moral duty, but a political necessity. Macron is on a diplomatic tour in Southeast Asia, which also saw him visit Vietnam and Indonesia earlier this week. Sudan's anti-government militia, the so-called Rapid Support Forces, shelled El Ubaid on Friday, hitting 2 hospitals and residential neighborhoods of the key southern city. An army source said that the militia attacked the residential areas of the city with heavy artillery, adding that they had hit the social insurance hospital and the city's army hospital. On Thursday, the militiamen said that they retook a town around 100 kilometers west of El Ubaid after the army recaptured it earlier this week. The conflict between the National Army leading the country in a transitional period and the turned militia has killed tens of thousands of people and uprooted 30 million since it erupted in April of 2023. The United Nations said that the conflict has created the world's biggest hunger and displacement crises. Saudi authorities said that 1.1 million pilgrims have arrived from outside the kingdom so far, though its air, sea and land port, ahead of the annual Hajj to the holy city of Mecca. Preparations are underway to ensure this year's pilgrimage is successful, especially with the renovations to areas around the Grand Mosque in Mecca that help to expand it. Authorities have also mobilized more than 40 government agencies and 250,000 officials and doubled their efforts to mitigate the heat-related risks. This year's pilgrimage will begin on June the 4th and take place over 4 days. A top Pakistani military official said on Friday that Pakistan and India are close to reducing the troop buildup along the border to levels before the conflict erupted between the nuclear-armed neighbors this month, although he warned the crisis had increased the risk of escalation in the future. Both sides used the fighter jets, missiles, drones and artillery in 4 days of clashes, their worst fighting in decades, before a ceasefire was announced. The spark for the latest fighting between the old enemies was an April 22nd attack in the Indian Kashmir that killed 26 people, most of them tourists. A Kremlin spokesman said that Russia and Ukraine are expected to discuss the list of conditions for the ceasefire in the conflict in Istanbul next week. The details follow.
Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said on Friday that Ukraine wants to see a document setting out the Russian proposals for a peace deal before it sends a delegation to Istanbul for the bilateral talks. Russia has proposed that the negotiators from the two sides meet in Istanbul on June the 2nd, but Kiev has said it needs reassurances that Moscow is sincere about wanting to end the war. Russia, which launched a full-scale military operation in Ukraine more than 3 years ago, made the proposal after the US President Donald Trump urged Moscow and Kiev to work together on a peace deal. Expectations for the talks are modest because the positions staked out so far by the two sides are far apart, and work between them has yet to begin in earnest on narrowing the gap. At a joint news conference in Kiev on Friday with visiting Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, Sybiha stopped short of confirming that Ukraine would take part in the Istanbul talks. He said that to date Ukraine had not received the memorandum it was expecting from the Russian negotiators containing proposals for discussion in Istanbul.
U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, said earlier today that the Russian concern over the eastward enlargement of NATO was fair, and the United States did not want to see Ukraine in the U.S.-led military alliance. Commenting on Kellogg's statement, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Putin has been consistently conveying the Russian position on the unacceptable NATO eastward expansion. And the Ukrainian officials said that the Russian forces launched a drone attack overnight that targeted a Ukrainian town on the border with NATO member Romania. The attack hit the town of Izmail, Ukraine's biggest port on the Danube River, which is important for the critical imports and which lies across the river from Romania. Ukrainian regional governor said the post office branch was destroyed in the drone attack, reporting no casualties. Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation Ala Farouk said that the Egyptian agricultural exports hit a record of 4.8 million tons since the beginning of the year, an increase of 500,000 tons from the same period in the previous year. The minister said the huge increases are part of the joint cooperation efforts by the farmer, the producer and the exporter. A report submitted to the minister showed citrus topped the list of the agricultural exports, accounting for 1.8 million tons, followed by potatoes that reached 1.1 million tons. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed a determination to defend the rules-based, free and the multilateral trade systems and work on expanding the main Asia-Pacific trade group at a time of tension over sweeping U.S. tariffs. Ishiba told the Global Forum in Tokyo that the high tariffs will not bring economic prosperity. He added that Japan seeks to work with the U.S. on investment, job creation, and manufacturing high-quality products for the prosperity of America and the rest of the world. And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you for watching and goodbye.